Have you ever had a great idea for an app and just wondered, what does it actually take to make it real? Well, today we're going to peel back the curtain on that exact process. We're going to follow the entire journey of a real world project from the very first spark of an idea all the way to the finished product.
It's a question a lot of us have, right? We use apps all day, every day. But how they're made can feel like a total black box. It seems like it's all just complicated code, super tight budgets, and crazy deadlines. So how do we crack that box open and see what's really going on inside?
To figure it out, we're going to use a project called Overnews as our guide. It's the perfect case study, really, to unpack all the challenges, the tech, and the real world lessons you learn when you're building an app. So let's dive in, right from the beginning.
Every great application, every single one, starts by solving a problem. So what was the problem that kicked off the whole idea for Overnews in the first place? Well, the core idea was to tackle the language barrier for international visitors in Spain. I mean, imagine you're in a brand new country and you can't understand any of the local news. Overnews was built to fix exactly that. It's a pretty smart, fully automated news aggregator that pulls news from all kinds of sources and translates it in real time into multiple languages. It makes local info accessible to everybody, instantly. Okay, so you have the idea, but how do you actually build something like that? Let's take a look at the blueprint, the tools and the tech that brought Overnews to life. The creator made a really crucial decision right from the get-go to keep the back end and the front end separate. You can think of it like a restaurant, right? The back end is the kitchen. That's where all the hard work happens. The cooking, the prep, the organizing. The front end, that's the dining room, where you, the customer, get to see and enjoy the final product. This separation, which is connected by something called a REST API, makes the whole system way more flexible and a lot easier to work on later. So for that kitchen, the back end, the project used Fast API. It's a super high-performance framework that uses Python. And the biggest reason for this choice? Speed. And I don't just mean how fast the app runs, but how fast you can build it. The project report actually estimates that using Fast API can literally double or even triple your development speed. For one person working on a project, that is a huge, huge advantage. And of course, no modern software project gets built without a safety net. For Overnews, that safety net was Git and GitHub. Think of Git as a time machine for your code. It tracks every single change you make. So if something breaks, you can just rewind back to a version that actually worked. And then GitHub gives you a central, safe place to store all that code. I'm telling you, these tools are absolutely essential for keeping a project organized and secure.
Okay, now this is where the story gets really fascinating. Every project starts with a plan, right? A timeline, a budget. But as we all know, plans don't always survive first contact with reality.
So the initial plan for Overnews was, let's say, ambitious. But it seemed pretty reasonable. A 3-month timeline, about 381 hours of work, and a budget just a little over 6,000 euros. On paper, it looked totally doable. But you know how it goes. Software development is famous for throwing you curveballs. So did the project actually stick to the plan? Let's take a look at the final numbers.
Okay, first, the budget. The final cost landed at over 11,800 euros. That's nearly double the initial estimate. That is a massive difference, and it tells you a lot about the hidden costs and surprises that can pop up during development. And what about the timeline? Well, same story. The project took 7 months to finish, more than double the 3 months that were planned. This is a perfect illustration of one of the biggest challenges in the tech world, trying to guess how long something is actually going to take. So the big question is, why? Why such a big difference? Well, the creator's own analysis points to 3 key things. First, the project just turned out to be way more complicated than it looked on the surface. Second, and this is so relatable, life happened. Unexpected personal stuff just meant there was less time to work on it. And third, the simple act of hunting down bugs and solving technical problems just took way longer than planned. These are basically universal truths for almost any big project. So, now that we know the story behind how it was made, let's take a quick peek under the hood and see how the app actually works. It's all basically a 4-step cycle. First, some scripts automatically go out and scrape or fetch news from different websites. Second, all the important data from that news gets stored in a solid database. Third, a translation service gets to work, turning the news into 7 different languages. And finally, the backend serves up the right news in the right language to you, the user. Simple idea, but pretty complex to pull off. In this slide, This gives you a little taste of that complexity. This is what's called an entity relationship diagram. Now, you don't need to understand every little box and line here. The key takeaway is just to see how all the different pieces, like the user, the news, the category, are all connected. It's a complex web of data that has to work perfectly for the app to do its job. So, after 7 months of hard work, budget blowouts, and a whole lot of technical challenges, what did the final product actually look like, and what were the big takeaways from all this? Here it is. This is a look at the design concept for the main user interface. You can see it's got a nice, clean layout. There's a carousel up top for the big stories, and then a grid of news cards down below. This is the tangible result of all that back-end work we were just talking about. A clear, simple interface for the user. And what did the creator feel at the end of this whole long journey? This quote from the report, I think, says it all. Despite all the setbacks, the pure satisfaction of turning a complicated idea into a real, working application made everything worth it. That feeling, that's the reward that keeps developers and creators going. So, as we wrap this up, I'm going to leave you with this question. Whether you're building an app, starting a business, or just tackling any big goal, what's the biggest lesson from the Overnews story that you would apply to your own project? Is it the practical lesson, to double your time and budget estimates? Or is it the reminder that just pushing through all those unexpected challenges is what leads to that deeply satisfying result in the end? Something to think about. Thanks for joining me.